Hey there, everyone. This is Lee Gerstmann, and I'm going to do a record review for you. This one goes out to Scott Carter for recommending an album by Black Sabbath called Paranoid. I have to say that Paranoid is the very first Black Sabbath album that I ever got. I originally heard of Black Sabbath around, well, maybe when I was about 8 years old. I had heard of them, just like I had heard of Grand Funk Railroad, and I had heard of Mahogany Rush. And then there was a show called Don Kirshner's Rock Concert, and they would play different stuff, and I finally got to hear Mahogany Rush, and I also got to hear Black Sabbath. But I hadn't been too much aware of them. I only heard a little bit of them on that Don Kirshner's rock concert. But then I was kind of interested in them, and one time our church went to a kind of field trip to Angel Island, and there were these young guys who were like in their young 20s who were born again Christians, and they used to listen to certain rock music, and then they decided that some of that rock music was, um, you know, devil music or whatever it was. And one guy, his favorite group was Black Sabbath, but he was telling me about how their music represented evil. And so I was asking him questions, and the questions I was asking him, um, it was for a different reason. It's like he was telling me that they represented evil, and I thought, oh, that must mean that they're pretty heavy and cool. He was trying to tell me to kind of warn me, but he was telling me about Master of Reality, and he said that Master of Reality had like a picture of a demon on the bed, like a naked demon. He actually was referring to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, but he said that was really evil. And so I was like, oh, really? What albums are there most evil? So I was like, oh, cool. Is this album evil? And it was like I was taking notes so I could get the album, not to shy away from them. You know, not saying that I thought evil was cool, because as far as I'm concerned, um, you know, evil is just a state of perception or interpretation. But as far as just describing the albums like that, I thought it was kind of cool. So he was telling me about Master Reality and um, stuff like that, and um, so that was the first album that I wanted to get, but our record stores around here didn't have them. But I was in um, junior high school, and one particular thing that they were giving out as credit, as gifts, was if you did a lot of good work in your class, at the end of the year, the teacher could give you something worth a certain amount of credit. So it was like if you did enough work, you could get something worth $5 or something worth $7. And I decided to get an album. And she said, what album? I said, well, I would like to get an album by Black Sabbath. And then so next time I was in school, she came and she said, here you go. And she got me Paranoid. She said they didn't have Master of Reality, the one that you wanted. This was the only one that they had. But I was like, okay, hey, you know, I wasn't able to find their albums in my stores. So, hey, thank you for getting me that. So that was the first album that I heard. At the time, even though I thought they were a really good group, I found that some of their songs sounded like they were going a little too slow. Kind of like, why couldn't they pick up the pace a bit? But now, after hearing it again, I realized that it's really a varied album, as far as some of it slow, some of it faster, but it's pretty good. And it's really ahead of its time, because a lot of the songs still hold up to this day. And War Pigs, that was one that I thought, well, at the time I thought, come on, kick up the pace a little bit. There was some cool guitar parts and everything, but I thought that when it went, like that, I thought, well, you're kind of taking too long here. You know, why don't you just get to a part that's more like, I would like that better. But now I think it's a fine song. There's nothing wrong with it. But back then, I was into like stuff like really intense, like Ted Nugent. I was like into, heavy stuff by Kiss, and Led Zeppelin, and stuff like that. I was into like Jimi Hendrix. I was into stuff that was like, you know, was fast and intense, not slower. But now I see there's really no difference between Black Sabbath and those groups. But back then, that was how I felt. But War Pigs is a really interesting and political song, and they really were more commentators on a lot of the wickedness in the world. They really weren't trying to say that wickedness was cool. They were trying to say that these are the warning signs. This is what to watch out for. So it's actually they were pretty political at that time, and it's a song that to this day still has a lot of holding power as far as its message. And then Paranoid, that one, it's a cool rockin' tune. I found that Ozzy's voice sounds a little bit kind of muffled, a little tiny bit or echoey, a little too much. But no, that's a really good, powerful, heavy song. And then Planet Caravan, um, it's okay. It's maybe not the best song on the album. And at the time, I thought, why are they putting this mellow tune on here, especially since War Pigs was kind of slow? Why didn't they pick up the pace and do more heavy stuff? In Iron Man, a lot of people talk about it as far as being overplayed, or as far as Bill Ward maybe sounding kind of, you know, off or whatever. I don't think that way. I think it's a fine song. I think that it's still a song that maybe when they play it too much on FM radio with classic rock, you think, well, why don't they play something else for a change? But in context with Paranoid, the album, it's still a fine song to hear. I haven't gotten tired of it. And now, anyway, like I said, back then I found some of the songs to be good, you know, not slow, but really cool songs. And one of those that I found was Electric Funeral. That was, um, well, in some places it was slow, but it had a purpose. And then it got real fast, and I think that's one of the most awesome songs on the album. It's one of my favorites. There's actually all four songs on on side two are my favorites. So, Hand of Doom was one that I really loved. That was a really cool song, and I even wrote some songs that had that sort of melodic line. When he talks about like skin is turning green, dun 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 dun. Now you dun 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 dun. I wrote one that was called "I'm Not in Love with You" and "I'm Not in Love with You." Dun 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 dun. You know that is true. Dun 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 dun. So it was the same kind of melody line, and it was really cool. I love Hand of Doom. That's a great song. And then Rat Salad, I'm like a drummer. I love drums, and so even if Rat Salad just had the drum solo without the rest of the song, I would have loved it. But Rat Salad is a really cool song. It's like just as cool as Moby Dick by Led Zeppelin. It's its own thing, and I really dug it. And Fairies Wear Boots is one of my favorite songs, also on that album. That had a really cool beat, and I used to like drum along with it. That has a really cool sound, and I wish I could have written a song like it. Well, anyway, um, so thanks, Scott, for suggesting that I review Black Sabbath's Paranoid, because it's one of those albums that you don't really think about its timelessness until you realize a lot of time has passed, and it is timeless. Well, anyway, that's my review, and take care.